The alien engineers had tried everything. Their ship, an advanced marvel of technology, was beyond repair. Or so they thought. The stranded alien crew stood in solemn silence on the desolate surface of the planet. Their sleek, towering starship, once a masterpiece of interstellar travel, now lay dormant, powerless. The vessel's advanced systems had failed months ago, and despite their best efforts, every attempt to restore it had ended in failure. They had sent out distress signals across the sector, but no help had come. Their situation was dire. Their food supplies were dwindling, their oxygen reserves running low. Worst of all, without their ship, they were cut off from their homeworld, stranded indefinitely on an uninhabited planet. Then, against all odds, a response finally came. The aliens watched in confusion as a human vessel, a rugged, patchwork-looking thing compared to their sleek technology, descended from the sky. It wasn't the advanced rescue fleet they had hoped for. Instead, it was a small team of human mechanics and engineers, looking more like salvagers than saviors. As the humans disembarked, the lead alien engineer, a tall, slender being with smooth, luminous skin, stepped forward. He studied the humans with skeptical eyes. "You received our distress signal?" the alien asked cautiously. One of the humans, a scruffy-looking mechanic with grease-stained hands and a confident smirk, nodded. "Yeah, we got it. You folks look like you're in a bind." The alien sighed. "It is beyond a bind. Our ship's quantum drive is beyond repair. The power regulators are fried, and our navigational AI is unresponsive. We have exhausted all possible solutions." The human mechanic raised an eyebrow and scratched his chin. "That so?" He turned to his crew. "All right, boys, let's take a look." The aliens exchanged doubtful glances. Did these humans really believe they could fix what the most brilliant minds of their species could not? The humans walked up to the ship, their eyes scanning the damage. One of them tapped the side of the hull, listening to the sound it made. Another pulled out a flashlight, inspecting the wiring. Then, after only a few minutes of looking over the massive, broken-down starship, the lead mechanic chuckled. This is nothing. We'll have you flying in no time." The alien stared in stunned silence. Surely, the humans were joking. But as the mechanics rolled up their sleeves and got to work, the aliens would soon realize, they weren't. The alien engineers stood in silent disbelief as the human mechanics set to work. Their vessel, an intricate marvel of science, had confounded even their best minds. How could these humans, with their crude tools and primitive ship, possibly hope to repair it? Yet, the humans worked with a casual confidence, as if this was just another job. One of the aliens, a silver-skinned technician named Orcs, watched as the scruffy human mechanic from before, who called himself Jack, knelt down and pried open a panel near the ship's base. Sparks flew as Jack peered inside, muttering under his breath. "This wiring's a mess. Looks like some kind of feedback loop fried half your systems." Orcs blinked. That is impossible. Our systems are designed to prevent cascading failures." Jack smirked, pulling a tool from his belt. "Yeah? Well, looks like your system didn't get the memo. Seen this kind of thing before, happens when a regulator fails and the backup systems don't kick in right." The other humans had already spread out, poking around the ship's massive engines and control panels. One of them, a woman with her hair tied back in a greasy bandana, whistled. "You guys built a beauty, I'll give you that. But you overcomplicated things. All this redundancy, it's workin' against you." Orcs bristled at the remark. "Overcomplicated? This is one of the most sophisticated vessels in our fleet." Jack chuckled, tapping on a thick conduit. "Yeah? Then why won't it fly?" Orcs had no response. The first breakthrough. Hours passed. The humans worked tirelessly, their hands moving with practiced efficiency. They didn't seem to be following any written manuals or protocols, just instinct and experience. Jack and his team removed a scorched panel, revealing a complex network of shimmering conduits. The alien engineers had deemed the damage irreversible. But Jack? He simply grabbed a length of insulated wire from his toolkit and started reconnecting things by hand. Orcs gasped. "What are you doing? You cannot just bridge those circuits manually. The energy flow must be balanced at the molecular level." Jack grinned. Yeah, molecular level, I hear ya. But I'm just making sure the juice gets where it needs to go. Sometimes, you gotta go old school." There was a crackle, followed by a low hum. A dim, flickering light inside the ship's core blinked to life. Orly stared. Jack wiped his hands on his jumpsuit. "There. Now we've got power to your main systems. Told you this wasn't impossible." The aliens exchanged looks of shock. This wasn't possible. Yet, it had just happened. Doubt turns to amazement. Despite their initial skepticism, the alien engineers began assisting the humans, at first hesitantly, then with growing enthusiasm. Every time an alien insisted something was too complex or beyond repair, Jack and his crew would find a workaround, a solution so simple it was almost insulting. By the end of the day, the ship had more functional systems than it had in months. Orleans, still reeling, turned to Jack. How do you know these things? You have never seen our technology before." Jack smirked. "Kid, when you've spent your whole life fixin' busted ships, you start to see patterns. Doesn't matter how fancy a machine is, at the end of the day, it still runs on the basics. Power, fuel, structure. Everything else is just extra." Orleans wasn't sure whether to be offended or impressed. And then, an alert tone rang through the ship. One of the alien officers ran to check the controls. His voice was shaky. "The core, it's stabilizing. The ship is responding." The aliens erupted into excited murmurs. Hope flickered in their eyes for the first time in months. Jack just rolled his shoulders. "Told ya. We're just getting started." The alien engineers were stunned. The once dead ship now hummed with faint energy, its systems flickering to life as human hands worked ere advanced alien minds had failed. Orleans still couldn't believe it. He stared at Jack and his team, struggling to comprehend how these crude, instinct-driven mechanics were solving problems their best scientists had declared unsolvable. But as the excitement grew, a new problem emerged. A deep, resonating hum shuddered through the ship, and suddenly, warning lights flared across every remaining control panel. A pulse of blue energy crackled across the vessel's surface, sending a jolt through the floor. The human mechanics staggered back as Orleans' team scrambled in panic. "What now?" Jack muttered. One of the alien officers shouted over the noise. "The power surge is unstable. If it continues, the core will implode." Orleans' voice was tight with fear. "We have to shut it down immediately. The fail-safe mechanisms are still non-functional." Jack let out a slow breath, then glanced at his team. "All right, folks. Looks like we've got a real problem now." But none of them looked afraid. They looked excited. Thinking outside the galaxy. Orleans and his crew frantically scanned their data pads, throwing out calculations and theories. "We need to disperse the energy buildup, but we have no working stabilizers." One of the alien technicians groaned. "It's over. We need to abandon the ship before the core ruptures." Jack's team barely reacted. Instead, Jack squatted next to an exposed control panel and traced a thick conduit with his calloused fingers. He tapped it lightly, then grinned. "You guys ever try grounding it?" The aliens stared blankly. "Grounding? What do you mean?" Jack grabbed a long, insulated cable and started working. Your ship's trying to process too much power at once, right? So instead of letting it overload, we just give it somewhere else to go. The alien engineers recoiled. You want to divert raw energy? That's suicide. Jack shook his head. Not if we do it right. We don't need to disperse all of it, just enough to keep the core from self-destructing. He snapped his fingers at one of his crew members. Hey, Lisa. Remember that time we had to fix that busted generator on Titan? The one with the feedback loop? Lisa, the woman in the greasy bandana, grinned. Oh yeah. We rigged up a bypass and let the excess current drain into the framework. Kept the whole thing from blowing to bits. Jack turned back to Orleans. Same concept. Different scale. Orleans hesitated. If Jack was wrong, the ship wouldn't just be stranded, it would cease to exist. But there was no time to argue. The core's pulse was growing faster. The ship was vibrating now, warning klaxons blaring. And the humans were already moving. The final gamble. Jack's team moved like a well-oiled machine. Within minutes, they had stripped down sections of the ship's internal framework, exposing layers of conductive material. Using tools that looked primitive by alien standards, they created a makeshift grounding array, an untested, improvised system designed in mere moments. Orleans' team looked on in horror. This was insanity. It will not work, one of them whispered. Jack just smirked. Guess we'll find out. He signaled Lisa, who twisted the final connection into place. Sparks danced along the ship's walls as the conduit lit up with raw energy. The ship groaned in protest. Then, suddenly, silence. The vibration stopped. The blaring alarms cut off. The core's energy pulse slowed, then stabilized into a steady, even rhythm. Jack let out a low whistle. And that is how you fix an impossible problem. The aliens could only stare. The unthinkable had just happened. The ship wasn't just surviving, it was coming back to life. And for the first time in months, they had a chance to go home. The alien ship, once thought to be a dead husk drifting in the void, was now humming with newfound energy. Jack and his team had done the unthinkable, they had stabilized the core. Orleans' crew stood in stunned silence. Even those who had dismissed the humans as primitive now looked at them with something closer to awe. Jack, wiping his grease-covered hands on his uniform, gave a cocky grin. Well, that's step one done. Now, let's see what else is broken. The ship wasn't fully functional yet. Power was restored, but many key systems, engines, navigation, and communication, were still inoperable. The aliens were hesitant. If the humans had already defied logic once, maybe they could do it again. But as they got to work, something else was happening. Something no one had expected. A ship with a secret. As Lisa and the others began patching damaged conduits, one of the alien engineers, Curly's, examined the control system. His pale fingers skimmed across the holographic readout, his wide eyes narrowing in disbelief. Orleans noticed. What is it? Curly's voice was barely above a whisper. There's another energy signature. Jack overheard and walked over. Another power source? I thought the core was your only juice. Curly shook his head. Not like this. This signal, it's deep inside the ship, buried under layers of security protocols. He turned to Orleans. Sir, this ship was never supposed to carry classified technology, but... Jack folded his arms. But someone lied? Orleans felt a chill run through him. His race had strict policies about experimental tech, nothing unapproved was ever sent on a civilian vessel. If something hidden was on board, it meant one of two things, a mistake, or sabotage. The more Curly scanned, the worse it got. The signal wasn't just energy. It was something alive. A dangerous discovery. Jack and Lisa followed Orcs and Curlies down a series of access tunnels deep inside the ship's structure. The further they went, the more uneasy Orcs became. "This doesn't make sense," Orcs muttered. "There's no record of this compartment even existing." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's there." They reached a sealed door. Unlike the rest of the ship's systems, this one was fully powered. Lisa whistled. Somebody wanted this thing locked up tight. Jack studied the locking mechanism. It wasn't broken, it had been deliberately shut down. Someone had manually overridden the ship's main systems to keep whatever was inside trapped. Orlis' heart pounded. "We should not open this." Jack glanced at him, then grinned. "So obviously, we're opening it." Lisa sighed. "We really gotta work on your survival instincts." With a few expert maneuvers, Jack's team bypassed the lock. The door hissed as it depressurized, then slowly slid open. Inside, a small, dimly lit chamber flickered to life. And in the center, something moved. The stowaway. It was no ordinary cargo. Suspended in a containment field was a creature. It was humanoid, but its body shimmered like liquid metal, its form shifting slightly as if adapting to its surroundings. Faint blue energy pulsed beneath its surface. Its eyes, if they could be called that, glowed with a cold intelligence. And it was watching them. Lisa's grip tightened on her toolkit. "Jack, please tell me this is normal for an alien ship." Orlis looked horrified. "It is not." The alien crew had no idea what this thing was. It was not one of theirs. Jack, always the first to break a tense silence, took a step forward. "Hey there, buddy. You got a name?" The creature's gaze locked onto him. Then, in perfect human English, it responded. "I was wondering when you'd finally find me." For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. The alien crew stood frozen, their expressions ranging from fear to confusion. Jack, ever the bold one, took another step forward. Lisa grabbed his arm. "Jack, don't be an idiot." But Jack just grinned. "Come on, it talks. That means we can figure out what it wants." The liquid metal creature inside the containment field shifted slightly, its glowing eyes locked onto Jack. Then, it spoke again, in perfect English. "You are not what I expected." Jack crossed his arms. "Yeah? Well, neither are you. Mind telling us what you're doing locked in a secret compartment on a broken alien ship?" The being's form flickered, as if considering its words. Then it spoke in a voice that sent a chill through the room. "I was meant to be a weapon. A forgotten experiment." Orly stiffened. "A weapon? Against whom?" The creature's gaze flicked toward him. "Against everyone." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. The creature's body rippled, and for a moment, its form distorted, revealing something else underneath. A second layer. One that looked, almost human. "I was created to adapt, to survive in any environment, to become anything my captors desired. But when they lost control of me, they locked me away. And then..." The being glanced around the dim chamber. "They abandoned me." Jack's smirk faded. "Let me guess, this wasn't exactly a voluntary experiment?" The creature's metallic form flickered again. "Pain. Anger. I was taken. Engineered. Modified beyond recognition." Lisa exhaled sharply. "Holy." Jack frowned, rubbing his chin. "Okay. So, let me get this straight, you're some kind of biological AI hybrid that can change forms? And your creators ditched you?" The creature's glowing eyes darkened. "No. They intended to retrieve me. But their war ended before they could. Aurelius' expression twisted in horror. You're from the Erethan Wars. Lisa glanced between them. The what now? Aurelius' voice was grim. A conflict that nearly wiped out 2 entire civilizations centuries ago. The Erethan believed in total biological perfection. They experimented on entire species, modifying them into weapons. But the war ended before their most advanced creations could be deployed. Jack exhaled. So they made you, and then lost their war before they could use you. The creature's body rippled again. They lost. I did not. For the first time, the weight of what they had found truly sank in. This was not just a lost experiment. This was an unfinished weapon. A weapon that had just been reawakened. Can they trust it? Lisa swallowed. Okay. So, what now? We let it out? Orleans took a step back. Absolutely not. We have no idea what it's capable of. Jack studied the creature. It wasn't lashing out. It had been here for centuries and hadn't tried to escape. That meant one thing. You could have broken out of here any time, couldn't you? Jack asked. The creature was silent for a long moment. Then, it nodded. Lisa blinked. Wait, what? Jack's smirk returned. See? It ain't some uncontrollable monster. It was waiting. He turned back to the shimmering form. You didn't escape because you didn't want to. The creature met his gaze. I wanted to see who would come for me. Jack nodded. Well, buddy, you got humans. For the first time, the creature's shifting metallic body almost seemed to relax. But then... bang! The ship lurched violently. Alarms blared. Emergency lights flickered. Lisa grabbed onto the nearest console. What the hell was that? Aurelius' voice was urgent. Something just hit the ship. Jack turned sharply toward the glowing blue eyes of the alien stowaway. Did you bring company? The creature's gaze didn't waver. No. It tilted its head slightly. Listening. Then, its glowing eyes flashed. But someone else has found us. The ship lurched again, a deep, metallic groan reverberating through its structure. Something big was outside. Lisa's fingers flew over the controls. Jack, we've got multiple unidentified ships incoming, fast. Jack's stomach tightened. Pirates? Orleans cursed under his breath. Worse. That's a Scyther war signal. Lisa turned sharply. The Scyther? You mean those biomechanical freaks that harvest living things for spare parts? The alien stowaway inside the containment field suddenly tensed. Scyther, it repeated, its voice lower, more guttural this time. Its shifting form rippled aggressively. Jack saw it too. You know them? The being's gaze turned sharp. They are the reason I was created. Jack swore. Surrounded. Lisa's screen flared red. Jack, we're boxed in. They've surrounded us. Orleans clenched his fists. We can't fight a Scyther boarding crew. If they get on this ship, we're done. Jack's jaw tightened. Unless we can get this rust bucket moving. Lisa's face was grim. It's still half dead. If I had a day, maybe. But 5 minutes? No chance. A hollow clang echoed from above. Then another. And another. They were docking. Jack spun to the alien stowaway. You want a chance to prove you're not a weapon? Help us fight these bastards. The creature stared at him. Its form shifted, solidifying into something denser. Then, for the first time, it smiled. Open the containment field. The Scyther boarding party. The airlock screeched open, and the first Scyther stepped inside. They were worse than the stories. Towering biomechanical creatures, half organic, half machine. Their bodies pulsed with unnatural movement, like their skin was alive. Jagged limbs clacked against the floor as they scanned the ship's interior with burning red eyes. The lead Scyther's voice was an eerie whisper, distorted through some kind of hive mind relay. Living crew detected. Harvesting will commence. Jack raised his gun. But before he could fire, the stowaway moved. It didn't just attack. It became something else. The true power of the lost experiment. The creature melted from its humanoid shape into a bladed storm, liquid metal snapping into razor-sharp edges as it tore through the first Scyther. The alien invader barely had time to react before its entire upper half was severed. Lisa gasped. Holy! The remaining Scyther turned toward the shifting entity, their red eyes flickering. Unexpected variable detected. The stowaway morphed again. Its liquid metal form split into multiple tendrils, each lancing forward with brutal precision. The second Scyther had no chance. Its limbs were shredded in seconds. Orcs watched in stunned horror. It's adapting to their weaknesses. Jack wasn't watching the fight. He was watching the stowaway's face. It wasn't just fighting. It was enjoying this. Friend or foe? The last Scyther, realizing the battle was lost, activated its distress beacon. A high-pitched pulse filled the air, an emergency signal calling for reinforcements. Lisa's eyes widened. Oh, that's bad. Jack turned to the alien being. Can you stop that signal? The stowaway turned, its bladed limbs retracting back into a humanoid form. Its glowing eyes studied Jack carefully. Then, without a word, it reached out, and plunged its metallic hand into the dying Scyther's chest. The Scyther convulsed. Then, the signal cut off. The creature pulled its hand back. The Scyther's body collapsed, its mechanical core fused shut. Lisa stared. Okay. That was horrifying. Orcs was still frozen. We just unleashed something worse than the Scyther. Jack didn't look away. Did we? The stowaway met his gaze. Then, slowly, it nodded. I am what they made me. Jack clenched his fists. No. You're what you choose to be now. The stowaway's glowing eyes flickered, uncertain for the first time. Then, an alarm blared. Lisa spun back to her console. We've got another problem. Jack sighed. What now? Lisa's face was pale. A Scyther battleship just arrived. Jack exhaled. Of course it did. The alien stowaway watched the screen, its glowing eyes narrowing. Then, it did something unexpected. It smiled. Then let us see what I can become. The ship shuddered violently as the Scyther battleship locked onto them. Lisa's hands flew over the controls. They've got us in a gravlock. We're not going anywhere. Oralis's voice was grim. That's it, then. We fight or we die. Jack clenched his jaw. He wasn't ready to die. Not here. Not like this. The alien stowaway, or whatever it was now, stepped forward. Release me. Jack hesitated. You saw what I can do, it said. Let me finish what the Scyther started. Lisa gasped. You're planning to board them? The stowaway smiled. No. I'm planning to end them. The leap into darkness. Jack hesitated for a split second, then slammed the release button. The containment field dropped. The alien being didn't wait. Its body morphed again, tendrils snapping outward, forming razor-edged wings. Then, without a word, it launched itself into the vacuum. Lisa's eyes widened. It's free-falling toward the Scyther battleship. Orlis leaned forward. What is it doing? Jack's grip tightened on the console. Winning. Inside the Scyther warship. The moment the alien landed on the Scyther hull, it changed. Its body poured into the cracks of the ship, flowing like living mercury, seeping into every vent, every crevice. The Scyther crew inside barely had time to react. Then the screaming started. The battleship goes dark. Lisa's sensors flared with chaotic readings. I don't know what it's doing in there, but the whole ship is. She stopped. The Scyther battleship's red warning lights flickered. Then, they went black. Jack's heart pounded. Is it over? Silence. Then. A transmission came through. The stowaway's voice was different now, calm, cold, controlled. The Scyther are no longer a threat. Jack's stomach twisted. What did you do? A pause. I rewrote them. Lisa's face paled. Rewrote? Their technology is based on integration. Absorption. They harvest others. But they were not prepared for something like me. The battleship's dark hull shuddered, and then, as if obeying an unseen command, it powered back on. Jack felt his throat go dry. You're controlling it now. The stowaway's voice held an edge of something almost human. Yes. Then, softly. Do you still fear me? Jack exhaled. I don't know. Another pause. Then, for the first time, the stowaway laughed. Good. The battleship shifted course. Lisa's screen flared with data. Wait, it's jumping to FTL. Jack's eyes narrowed. Where are you going? The stowaway's voice was calm. To find more of them. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. And then what? Silence. Then. We'll see what I become. The screen blinked out. The Scyther warship was gone.